Hello. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Hope you had a lot of fun. We're here on a Tuesday. As you know, $2 Tuesdays when we talk about sequels. I'm wearing my sunglasses today. Um, just don't ask why. But we're talking about they're celebrating. People are celebrating. Marvel's Endgame and Infinity War are celebrating almost a decade of being two of the top highest grossing superhero films of all time. Two. All right. Now, Endgame spent about, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, probably close to a year, maybe even more, at number one, eclipsing Titanic and Avatar. It's pretty great, pretty awesome. So I wanted to talk about these two films looking back. Um, as you can see, maybe you can see behind me, I have my Endgame uh, sketch glove right there, poster right there. I also have an Infinity Wars one somewhere back there. Um, these two films are two of my favorites, and the reason I wanted to talk about them today is not because, um, you know, Endgame is turning 7 years old, and Infinity War is turning 8 years old. Those are small things in comparison to what they did to the landscape of superhero films forever, perhaps. And so I wanted to talk about just expectations versus reality. You know, I remember being in high school when these films came out, and Infinity War was one of the greatest superhero films, in my opinion, that ever came out. It could almost be top 10 for me. Almost. It isn't, but it could be. Um, as far as superhero films go, it's probably up there for me in the top 10 just as a superhero film, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It just means it's a top 10 superhero film. Endgame is probably my favorite MCU movie of all time. Probably. It's hard to beat that one. That one carried a lot of weight with it. Endgame did. Infinity War was really good, and if you look at them as just one continuous film, um, and you kind of take out the sandwich filler that ended up being Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel was good. Don't get me wrong, I liked it, but I think they kind of didn't know what to do with that character at the time, and still haven't figured out what to do with her in these past few films that she's been in. And so she effectively gets kind of taken off screen for the majority of Endgame. And then she has a couple like cool moments with Thanos during Endgame, but ultimately there's not a lot there for her to do. And she was supposed to be kind of the big character that um, ushered in that those big moments. And I just don't think, as far as character development goes, they gave the Russo brothers a lot to work with in Endgame with that character. But I'm not here to talk about Captain Marvel. I'm here to talk about expectations versus reality, you guys. Now, we're talking about Infinity War and Endgame today for a very specific reason. We are 7 months, almost 6 months actually, uh, about 7 months, starting in May, away from Avengers Doomsday. Now, early reports from people inside the camp are talking about how this movie could be as big or bigger than Doomsday, and I just want to talk about expectations versus reality. Now, expectations say it could be, and we're all hyping it up to be. In fact, there's a whole community right now on YouTube alone begging and making their own fan made versions of the trailer that just recently released at CinemaCon that we got a description for. And no, I'm not saying that it's not fun to get hyped up and wonder when they're going to release the trailer and all that fun stuff like that. But I am saying the reality is, you guys, and let me just move in real close with you, alright? The reality is they're not going to be able to live up to the Infinity War hype in any way. Now, a lot of people might argue with me and say, yes, but Jay, they can try. And I will say to you, absolutely. And I hope that they do as good, if not a better job, with this cast of characters, serving them justice the way they did in Infinity War. Infinity War, I think, in a lot of ways, carries more weight than Endgame did. And I mean, Endgame carried a lot of weight, and it had to. It was the wrap up, the epic conclusion, as the descriptions say, for 22 films. And let's just talk more recently about Doomsday. Doomsday is only really wrapping up, 22 plus now. If we're really counting Doomsday and Secret Wars as one film in the same, which they are in the comic books, it can't be put on the same level. There's just no hope that they could ever live up to that run that they had with those two films. And so, what I'm saying today is, during this time, when you still have the time, lower your expectations. Go into Doomsday in 7 months or 6 months or whenever you happen to be watching this video. Go into that movie in time with lower expectations, because ultimately it cannot live up to, and it cannot hope to live up to, the nostalgia that we all have with Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, I went back recently and watched both Infinity War and Endgame in preparation for this video, and there are so many moments, whether we're talking about and I'm assuming if you've watched this video, you've seen the movie, so I'm not going to worry about spoilers. But we could talk about the moments where, in Infinity War, we get to see the cool moment where Thor picks up Stormbreaker for the first time, or, Thanos starts collecting all the stones, and there's so many amazing moments, and the CGI is top shelf, and some of the character moments really get kind of a resolve in this movie. And then in Endgame, we see everybody come back from the past 22 films, at least, and we get to see kind of the culmination of, at that point, what it would have been 11 years or so of work, just constantly, picking up and going again. And 11 years later, they were able to end it on possibly the highest note of all time ever achieved by a superhero film in Endgame. And I just want to say, it's not fair of us to hold any expectations to these directors. Now, I trust the Russo brothers. I'm not saying they can't top their own work in Doomsday and Secret Wars, but if for some reason we all come out of those two movies over the next couple of years and we just say, no, not even close, we can't be mad, because so much has changed since then. We've changed as people. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you that went and saw those movies were younger then, in a different place then. Maybe you're like me, you have bills now, and you're not in the same headspace as you were, 7, 8 years ago, when these movies started to become something that everybody in the whole world could hold on to. And I think part of what these movies represent in the MCU is hope that maybe as a society we can come together one more time and just have something to rally around, like the Avengers. And for a while, it would get us all in theaters. And I think that's what these movies are supposed to do. Is they're supposed to help us have a reason to watch. And just to see our favorite heroes from the comic books or from our, childhoods come to life on the screen. And it's supposed to be magical and fun, and we're supposed to get emotionally attached to the characters. So when they have their Tony Stark, I am Iron Man moment, that we can all cheer and laugh and cry and feel things that we didn't think we could feel for comic book characters on screen. Um, it's important to have these things, and I think we will have those moments during Doomsday. I'm not saying we won't. Doomsday definitely has a chance to do so. I mean, you look at it this way: there's about as many characters in Doomsday as there were in Endgame alone. They're talking a 35 character cast, and that's, all the teams, plus, so many more, different things that happen. And between the two movies of Secret Wars and Doomsday, we can expect to see so many cool moments and so many, like, getting to see characters work together. But that's what made Infinity War and Doom and Endgame work, is because we got to see all of our favorite characters come together in ways we never imagined. You think about that war scene from the final, like, 30 to 45 minutes of Endgame, when they all come together and Cap finally says, Avengers assemble, and they crash together with the armies, and it comes to this moment where we're just like, whoa, right? And I'm not saying there won't be moments like that. In fact, there'll be probably more moments like that in Doomsday and Secret Wars, because of the fact that it's pretty much nonstop war throughout the comic books. Through that time runs out in Secret Wars era, it's pretty much nonstop fighting and chaos. It will be a lot of those moments of different characters getting screen time and getting to tell their story through their own eyes of how this story impacts them. But I think ultimately that's what I wanted to talk about today, was just the expectations, and just knowing that we will always have Infinity War and Endgame to look back on and talk about the moments and just live through the love of Endgame and what Infinity War meant to us, and emotionally the weight that they both carried. Whether you got mad during Infinity War and you became so happy during Endgame seeing everybody again, and then you became sad again because a lot of characters ended their arc there, and now we're seeing a lot of those characters come back, and maybe it will be meaningful, maybe it won't, and maybe it won't carry the same weight, and maybe it will. But expectations versus reality, the reality is these movies are going to happen, and they're going to mark the end of an era. And in 7, 8 years from now, a decade from now, we can look back on Doomsday and Secret Wars and say, man, how cool are those movies? And all the moments that we can never imagine at this point. Even with the best tools in the world, you can never imagine the magic that they're putting together for us right now. So, my message to you all as I reflect on these movies and just talk about my love of the MCU, is that we wait and we let them cook up a amazing meal. We know the Russo bros can do it. They've done it before, twice. And to do it twice over the span of 2 years is amazing. And to incorporate so many characters and give so many characters fun and, cool moments in both movies. And nobody felt underused. Well, there are a couple exceptions to that rule. But for the most part, everybody was used. And we can hope for the same moving forward, and looking at, the 6-month run of the summer until we hit Christmas, and sooner than you know it, Doomsday is already come and gone. And maybe in time we'll look back and this video will mean something to everybody. And I just hope that when we do look back, we can say we're proud of what that movie is and the people we became watching it. Because ultimately, it's not about the movie as much as it is our relationship to the movies. We talk about how bad and weird it got after Endgame, and I agree, there were weird moments, and there were also really cool moments. Some cool character development, some redemptive moments, some bad moments, and some moments that you just don't want to ever think about again. But ultimately, we live in a world now where comic book characters are becoming maybe old and stale. And at one point in time, nobody ever thought that could become a thing. So when you watch these movies, Doomsday and Secret Wars, and maybe this is more about them than it is even about Endgame and Infinity War, don't try to hold them up to the nostalgia that you hold with Endgame and Infinity War. Maybe don't. And this is just a reflection on legacy. Anyways, that's all I have to say for you today. You guys will see this on Tuesday. This will be my sequel video for this week on $2 Tuesday. I hope you guys enjoy me talking about the legacy of Infinity War and Endgame and the memories that we all hold so dear. And you hear the message that I'm trying to say, heading towards closer and closer towards the eventual end of these two movies coming up over the next couple of years. Other than that, make sure you guys go watch my other video. Currently, my 2007 Oscars video with No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood only has one view. If you could just make sure you run up the views and the view duration and like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, it means the world to me. And we're going to keep this thing going no matter what for the foreseeable future. And I think that about does it for this video. And let me know in the comments if you agree with me about expectations and, if you think maybe it's fair to hold these people to these expectations. I don't know. But until next time, just make sure you comment. Let me know how you're reflecting on your time with Infinity War and Endgame. And I'll see you guys, of course, in the next video. And until then, and if I don't see you then, at least I'll know I'll see you at the movies. Why isn't it stopping?